It's the dead of winter, 1776. George Washington stands shivering on the freezing banks of the Delaware River, watching his ragtag army prepare for an impossible crossing. They're tired, hungry, barely armed, but everything, hope, freedom, the very future of America, hinges on what happens in the next hour. How did these farmers and shopkeepers end up waging war against the empire? And how would Washington pull off a miracle that could change history forever? On the brink of disaster, Washington's leadership was the slender thread holding the revolution together. But what made him so unbreakable? On Christmas night, 1776, Washington led 2,400 soldiers across an icy Delaware River. The boats were poorly built, the river treacherous, and a brutal storm howled overhead. Most men had worn-out shoes, some without any shoes at all. The men weren't just crossing water, they were crossing the tipping point between despair and hope in the fight for independence. Think of leadership like a car with no GPS and a nearly empty tank. Washington had neither battlefield experience nor certainty, but his sheer will was the gasoline that kept that car moving forward when the path was invisible. His grit kept the army alive. Without it, they would have scattered before ever facing the enemy. That daring crossing led to the Battle of Trenton, where Washington's men surprised and routed Hessian mercenaries. What looked like a desperate gamble became a turning point, winning back morale, recruiting surges, and the belief that the revolution could succeed. Washington transformed despair into momentum when all odds screamed failure. The revolution wasn't generals and declarations alone. Ordinary men, farmers, teachers, even teenagers carried the cause on their backs. How did their stories shape the fight? Nathanael Greene was no typical soldier. Raised a Quaker, a pacifist faith, he became a general at just 33. His calm, strategic mind made him invaluable despite his lack of formal training. Greene embodied how the revolution turned peaceful men into warriors, balancing idealism with ruthless necessity in a brutal war. Then there, S. Henry Knox, a 25-year-old bookstore owner with a wild idea: haul heavy cannons nearly 300 miles through icy mountains from Fort Ticonderoga to Boston in the dead of winter. This wasn't military protocol, it was bold improvisation. Knox's success turned the tide, forcing British evacuation from Boston and proving ingenuity could trump tradition. The soldiers themselves were a human mosaic, black and white, skilled and unskilled, old and barely grown. They endured hunger, disease, and fear. Their shared suffering and sacrifice wove together a new American identity that was raw, diverse, and fiercely determined, a nation born not just from ideas but from the blood and grit of real people. Across the ocean, the British saw the rebellion as a minor nuisance, yet their disciplined army faced challenges that nearly unraveled their campaign. What fell through their grasp? General William Howe, commander of the British forces, was a seasoned soldier but overly cautious. He held back at critical moments, hoping to avoid unnecessary bloodshed and waiting for reinforcements that never fully arrived. This indecision gave Washington's ragtag army precious breathing room to regroup and launch surprise attacks. British officers viewed the colonial rebels as untrained amateurs who would lose heart quickly. This contempt blinded them to the revolutionaries' fierce determination and capacity for unconventional tactics. Like an orchestra ignoring its weakest player, Howe underestimated the rebels' ability to improvise and persevere through brutal winters and low supplies. The Redcoats fought bravely, their discipline and training unmatched on many fronts, but their tactical superiority was diluted by poor communication and command hesitation. Their valor was real but insufficient. The British Army's failures remind us that courage alone can't win a war. Strategy and understanding the enemy's spirit can be decisive. Back on that icy Delaware, Washington's shivering crossing wasn't just a military maneuver. It was the physical embodiment of a nation's desperate hope. That moment, frozen in time and frigid water, shows us what leadership, grit, and belief can do when everything seems lost. Next time you're facing a tough challenge, channel a little Washington. Don't wait for easy conditions. Make your own breakthrough. Subscribe for more book summaries like this one.